Welcome. I'm sorry, you're over there. I'm getting used to this. Happy Easter. Welcome to this evening's preseason call number 2. We're so honored that you're spending your Easter evening with us. And we're also very excited about the fact that tonight is preseason call number 2. So we'll get started here in just 10 seconds. And once again, welcome to everybody who's joined.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.
So we'll go to the first slide. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. We're going to make some opening comments because some people are either catching up from last week, wanting to be reminded about last week. We'll both share the work that we've done, and then that will lead us into the content for preseason call number 2. So just very quickly, to provide a context for everyone, as we take a look at the challenges in life that people face, while the challenges may seem rather high, the reality is that rarely is a person accessing 100% of their full potential. That when a person accesses more of their potential, they're able to handle much bigger challenges. Now, the reality is that if we take a look at it, there are 2 ways that are guaranteed to give a person access to that potential. One is in an emergency, and the other is in a game, a challenge, a competition, in your case, the Olympics or training for the Olympics, right? The bottom line is that these are the 2 dynamics where we see people predictably access their potential. Now, games and emergencies seem very different, but they do have certain things in common. And the most fundamental thing they have in common is they both create alignment, right? So when I say alignment, that can seem kind of motivational, esoteric, but what we're specifically speaking about, Brooke and myself, is the alignment between your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and your actions. In an emergency, a person experiences full alignment, they swing immediately into action. In a game, if you don't align, you lose. So both of these provoke this access to this deep potential buried in all of us. And obviously, in this case, what we've chosen is what we call a game. So last week, we actually invited everyone to get emotionally engaged in their game. So the first call was really about emotional alignment. And Brooke is going to review with us what are the things that we should have worked on, and then examples of what we did work on. So let's start with the first element. Would you make sure that everyone knows what we mean by a field of dreams, sometimes called a vision board, sometimes called a goal board. But after the movie Field of Dreams, we refer to it as a field of dreams.
Once again, good evening, everyone, and happy Easter. For those of you who've just joined us, I just want to say thank you for being here. It is truly an honor to spend Easter evening or the Passover holiday, if you celebrate that. We hope that that was blessed. So thank you for joining us this evening during such a special time. As Sarano said last week, we took a look at alignment. And one of the first ways that you can begin to create alignment for yourself in terms of emotional alignment is to bring together those images in the form of what we refer to as a field of dreams. What you are able to see right now on this board is Sarano's field of dreams. I will admittedly say that mine is in progress.
And that sometimes happens. And for those of you who have played before, sometimes you can see how it's only after you've written the game that the field of dreams really coalesces for you. So I would certainly say that if it didn't coalesce this week, allow it to seep into the unconscious mind and then see what actually comes up. Doesn't matter what week you get it done.
So I'm representing those of us who have not yet coalesced. Not procrastination, not the perfectionism. I'm like, I don't have the perfect pictures and the quotes yet. So Sarano is leading the charge.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
And this is an example of a field of dreams where he's bringing together imagery, and in this case, he's pulling in his game rallying slogan with the time is now, with different images of what's going on in our world. He's got Bruce Lee, I think, representing like karate chopping, anything that is not. Say more about that.
Well, Some of these are influences from when I was a kid, and certainly they're influences that have shaped the way that I think, whether it be the dialogues of Plato. Some of you know that my father, the late Reverend Benjamin Kelley, is one of many ministers in my family. And certainly my most early spiritual journey began with Jesus Christ. And then, of course, we have Batman, which, I'm not a Superman kind of guy, I'm sort of, I believe in heroism, but maybe I've got a little bit of a bitter edge. A reminder of some of the suffering going on in the world, and that the time is now to address this. Now, this won't speak to you because it wasn't designed by you. It doesn't communicate to you. It may to some degree, but not the way it communicates to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to acknowledge that everyone's field of dream is really individual, and you should do what speaks to you. It's not intended to impress others. It's the kind of thing that we would keep, we kept them by our beds. We keep them sometimes in the bathroom as a way to make sure that we're thinking about our goals when we wake up and, before we go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
Mine will look very different from this.
I can bet you that.
But this is beautiful and definitely communicates powerfully. And one of the things I love about looking back at your field of dreams over the years is that it definitely tells the story of that time in your life, and in some cases, history.
Yeah.
And it's like your personal handprint, which is so cool. And I hope that for those of you who didn't need more time for things to coalesce, that you possibly have your vision board, your field of dreams with you during this call. And again, some great things that players have done in the past is to take a picture of it with their iPhone and then use it as their screensaver on both their iPhone and maybe their desktop, have it in their room next to their bed. For some people, the dream board or the vision board or the field of dreams next to their bed is different than the one in their office space or their workspace, because the one in the workspace represents maybe that dynamic of their game, which is, business. So anyway, there's a lot of different ways to make it happen, but this is beautiful.
Let me make a quick comment. For those of you who know that Brooke spent, literally 6 hours a day, starting at 5 years old, training for the Olympics, I sometimes use her as an example on coaching calls, and I ask people, and her brother played in the NFL, and I asked them, how many times a day do you think someone training for the Olympics or someone who wants to get into the NFL, how much time a day do you think they think about their goals? Mm-hmm. The answer is all the time. Most people are literally giving more attention to their problems than they are to their goals. And I'm not saying that they won't reach their goals, but it makes it a really, really long path. The shortest distance between your goals is total focus. Obviously, that's perfection. We don't always hit it. If you're able over social media to share your field of dreams, we're very interested in seeing those and would love to see that and be inspired by them. Only because of time, we'll move on to the next segment. But hopefully this inspires those of you where it hasn't yet coalesced.
And I would personally like to see the game, the field of dreams of the kids that are playing the game. Those are usually like art.
Oh yeah.
They're total perfection. And I hope to see your field of dreams. If you're out there and you're on the younger side, it would be awesome to see what you've come up with. So please send them in or show us somehow. We'd love to see them. So this is an example of what we're going to call your game design, right? So you've got your field of dreams, and all the elements that we worked on in last week's call come together as your game design. In a moment, in today's call, we're going to go into your actual scorecard and what begins to create that. But this is the design of your game. This is all of those elements we discussed last week.
And again, remember this, for those of you who are new, this is where we're addressing the emotional tone of the game. Like, why would you do this? What inspires you? Why are you motivated to do this? Because people create some very detailed plans, which we're going to get to, but they're not inspired to follow through on them. So what was the point? Anyway, let's take a look at Brooke's 90-day game.
So the name of my game is Renaissance, and I really do see this as ushering in a brand new me And hopefully in doing so, my intention is to be a tremendous contribution to as many families as humanly possible. So the Renaissance is for me and to all of you and as many families as I can possibly touch throughout the next 90 days.
You told me that you were also inspired historically about how the last Renaissance started. So do you want to just share that comment that you made to me?
Yeah, so I was looking back over history and I looked at the last pandemic that we've experienced, and it was the Black Plague. And after the Black Plague came the Renaissance, and after the Renaissance, Enlightenment. And he's more of the history buff, but I have a real love for humanities and the arts. I got that in college very early on, and I didn't think of myself as somebody who was moved by that, but I really did connect to that period. So this, goes back to what is most similar that we've been through as a people, and then what came after. Mm-hmm. So that's what this represents. I love Aretha Franklin, but she sang Nessun Dorma by Pavarotti, I think.
Was it Pavarotti or Bachata? Who was?
No, it was Pavarotti.
It was
for
Pavarotti,
sure.
Sorry.
And
yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's so gorgeous. I'm not always like a classical music girl, but to hear Aretha Franklin, who filled in at a major, like the Grammys or something, because Pavarotti had some issue.
Yeah, some sort of throat.
Yeah, so she sang it, and it's very emotional, very beautiful. Normally my songs are like Jay-Z so this is very sophisticated.
A lot of country western music goes on in my household.
I'm not going to say on camera what that is.
Let's stay on.
So anyway, my book is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and it's another tremendous story about basically a bird that realized that he was bored with sort of the everyday nature of just being a seagull, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he rose above and began to realize that he was built for other things, and it was it's such an inspiring story. So I encourage you all to read that as well. My slogan is "The death of yesterday is the birth of today," and I am dedicating this to all the brave children who are suffering all over the world due to this pandemic. That it is my hope that this strengthens them, and that it leads to their strength in the future. So that is my game dedication. And this is Sarano's game.
So my 90-day game, this is the 77th time I will have played a 90-day game. This one is called Transcendence. The slogan is Death Before Dishonor. And for I haven't been in the military, but for those who have served, thank you for your service. The song is Lights Up by Harry Styles. There's this line in there that goes, never going back again. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that, everything that I want is in the future. It's not in the past, right? The movie is Transcendence with Johnny Depp. I know that for those of you who are not big science fiction buffs, but I will say it's a profound movie in problem solving, because at every stage, he actually transcends the problem rather than fighting with the problem. And I found that quite transformative. The book that I've been choosing for this particular game is an amazing book called Sapiens, New York Times bestseller. If you haven't read it, haven't heard of it, it's a brief history of humanity. It's 300 or 400 pages, but it's like I'm hoping that the book will never end. It's that good. And it does have things about pandemics that I've been reading, this book was written not that long, a while ago, but it's incredibly relevant. Then the dedication is to everyone who has died or is suffering from COVID-19. We have some very special players who have played the last 90 days of their life with us, like John Butcher supported in his quest to try and extend his life, which he did with his 90-day game, and his wonderful wife, Robin. And then to Mike Gagan and Andy Heath, and what some people know, but many don't know, is that two guys met in the 90-day game, had never met each other, got thrown together as daily partners, which is part of the process and what we do. They're both in their 30s. One of them found out that he had a rare liver disease, was going to die imminently. I've never seen a man turn yellow so fast with jaundice. It was one of the most rapid declines I've ever seen in a human being's life. And Andy Heath, an advisor from Merrill Lynch, he and his coaching team, all of whom were strangers, raised something like $25,000 to have Mike get the surgery. 4 people volunteered from that coaching team to give away half their liver to a guy they had never really known before the 90-day game. Andy Heath went in the surgery to give away his liver, half of his liver. I will say that Mike Gagan, despite Andy's valiant efforts, did not make it. But the thing that had us graduate him the first game player of the year was that, I kid you not, he died on day 90 of his 90-day game, and we all felt like he kind of held in there for us. So Mike is certainly in our prayers, and Andy, thank you for all that you've done for so many. All right, let's continue.
All right, so last week you had a chance to take a look at each of these areas of life, or if you're joining us for the first time this week, welcome. You're not behind, you'll be fine. You're going to take a look at each of these aspects of your life, and you're going to give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 representing the lowest sense of satisfaction or success in that area, and a 10 representing pure perfection. So you've taken a chance. You've taken the time to rate yourself in each of these areas. Are you dying to say something?
There's a comment, of course, that my family loves from my presentation.
Just want to be sure that we can be heard.
Okay. So what Brooke was referring to is what we call the game playing field. What you'll see is a document that actually lists 12 areas of life. You rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how well you feel you're doing those areas. And one of the jokes in my presentation is I say to people with body and health, as a way to start, let's say you woke up this morning, you walked into the bathroom, you stumbled in, you threw some water in your face, you looked at your body in the mirror, and you thought to yourself, now that's a 10, right? Now, clearly, most people don't feel that way. So you rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how you feel about your body, your money, your relationship, your spiritual life, your peace of mind, your tools and technology, your social life, how organized you are, your education, your family, your work, your charities, your hobbies, your interests, and your art. And literally what will happen is you'll quickly see that no one ever rates everything at the same level. Some things you're doing better at, some things not so good. The key is, what are the 3 to 5 areas that if you were to improve them, it would make the biggest difference in your energy, vitality, and self-esteem?
So right now, if you would take a moment, and you're going to think about this as an individual, and then if you are playing as a family, you're going to think about the 3 to 5 areas that you're going to play in as a family if you haven't already. You're going to choose 3 to 5 areas that you want to play in. And we want to encourage you that although when you do that rating of 1 to 10, it can be very natural to think, oh, I'm going to work on these areas that are low, or I'm not going to work on the areas that are high. And I just want to have you think about what would be most meaningful for you, whether it's low or high. If you imagined yourself 90 days from now, which 3 to 5 areas would be meaningful to you? And this really is, and you'll have to forgive me, parents, it's not about what your parents want for you. It's not about, sorry, wives, what your spouse wants for you, except in my case.
Except in your case.
But you want to really think about, as a human being individually, what are the 3 to 5 areas that would mean the most to you specifically? So you're going to choose those 3 to 5 areas. So you've got body and health, money, relationship, spiritual life, mind and peace, tools and technology, community, environment and organization, education, family, work, charities, hobbies, interests, and art. And when we take a look at where it says relationship, even though that's plural and we need to change that, relationship means with your husband or wife or romantic relationship.
Significant other.
And family is everyone you consider to be family. They may be blood, they may not, other than your spouse. So you're going to choose the 3 to 5 areas. In each area, you're going to choose a specific measurable outcome that you will achieve at the end of 90 days. It's very important that these outcomes are very specific. So let's say, for example, that I'm choosing body and health. I'm going to say at the end of 90 days, I will lose 20 pounds. I will be able to run a 12-minute mile. I will be very specific about those outcomes. I'm not going to say better health, because that could mean anything to anyone, right? So you want to think, if I were speaking to somebody who didn't know me at all and I said my outcome, would this be as clear to them as it is when I'm watching a baseball game or I'm watching a basketball game? That ball either clears the hoop or it doesn't. It's not a question, right? It's very clear. That's how clear you'd like your outcome to be. And you can give this some thought this week.
I would add that one of the other things that games and emergencies have in common, again, they seem really different. Emergency can be tragic. Games supposed to be fun. They're both win-lose scenarios, and they're both black and white. So this has to be something that literally lives like a finish line,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that if you don't hit it, then it's clear that you didn't hit it.
Mm-hmm.
What we'll then do is so envision, since you aren't able to see the slides, that taken a look and decided what are the 3 to 5 areas of life that you most want to improve. When those 3 to 5 areas rise, it's like the tide's rising, all ships will rise with it. So you will see a boost across every area of life if you choose the right 5. Then the next thing is we have to come up with how to know that we got there. So we create specific measurable goals. These things live like a finish line. They live like a deadline, right? And then we get to what we call the game scorecard. And what you'll see when we send you the slides is a document that's called the game scorecard. Brooke, do you want to describe what's there?
Sure. So you want to just think about this logically. I'd like you for a moment, so that this is real, to pick an area of your life that you've already chosen that you're going to play in. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's body and health. Other it's family. Whatever it is, just pick one, and pick the one that right now you're the most excited about and you're the most clear about. And you don't have to share this with other family members right now, or you can, depending on how well your Easter went today. But you're going to choose an area and imagine, if you haven't already gotten clear, which is totally fine if you haven't. Remember, I didn't get my own field of dreams done and I'm leading this. So if you're not clear, it's okay. But think about what you intend to have happen at the end of this 90 days. So as specific as possible of an outcome in that area. So let's say I'm going to choose body and health, and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, which is a challenge during the quarantine. But let's just imagine that, right? A daily point for me is going to be a micro behavior, a small behavior that I'm going to commit to every single day. This should not be something that I'm already good at, because I don't need to make brushing my teeth a daily point. Some of you might need to, but I got that under control so far. So I'm going to think of what is something I could do every single day that will bring me closer to goal at the end of 90 days if I did this every single day. So let's say, for example, I'm going to drink a gallon of water every day. That could be a daily point. Let's say I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do 40 minutes of cardio on an empty stomach before anything else has happened, right? That would be a daily point. So I'm going to choose small behaviors every single day. Sarano, as a daily point, is going to say something wonderfully romantic to me every single day.
That's actually not in my game yet. It's a good idea.
A weekly point will be gifts. Gifts for me every week, right? That's going to be a weekly point. And please encourage more of this.
I thought we weren't going to do this like that.
But the idea is you're going to think about a specific area. I want you to think of the area of your game that you're most excited about, the outcome that you want to achieve at the end of 90 days, as specifically as you can. And then what would you do daily? The little behaviors. These are not grand sweeping behaviors. Those are your daily points. Then you're going to think about a weekly point. Don't overthink it. A daily point is something you're going to do typically Monday through Friday. Since we're in the quarantine, you could decide that your daily points are 7 days a week if you'd like. But let's just imagine that we're going to keep it to 5 because work is ideally happening inside of those 5 days and school is happening inside of those 5 days. Great. So then a weekly point is something typically that you're going to do less than 5 days a week, they tend to be things people are doing once a week or twice a week. But if you've got those kind of odd points, if you have those odd points that are just, 4 days a week, that's a weekly point. You're going to give yourself 1 point, even though you're going to do it 4 times. Daily point, Monday through Friday. Just think, if I'm doing it 5 days a week, it's a daily. If I'm doing it less than 5 days a week, it's a weekly, even if it's 4 times. But most weekly points happen once a week or twice a week. A weekly point that Sarano's going to be videotaping and sending out is a romantic quarantine date night for all of the husbands on the call that need help in that department. So that would be a typical kind of weekly point. It happens once a week.
So one of the ways that people get stuck, and there's literally, you could have a list, and it would be a list of the ways that people prevent themselves from taking action. One of the ways they prevent themselves is by making something too big, or not getting a gradient that they can easily step onto. So the whole idea is that mathematically, if we took your daily points and times it by 90, a person should be able to estimate or guesstimate where you would arrive at. Remember, this part of the game is for the logical, rational mind, right? It's concerned with distances, estimations of effort, quantity,
precision,
points, effort, right? This is entirely different than the creative, the emotional mind. So the daily scorecard is also something that forces a new level of thinking, because we ask you to stick to only 10 daily points for all your areas of life combined, and only 5 weekly points. So it forces you to think of, well, what are the primary actions? We call these primary actions dominoes. Quick example, we're coaching someone, the person's like, oh, I'm upset, I couldn't, my day was stressful, I couldn't get all my work done. And we're like, okay, why couldn't you get all your work done? They were like, well, because I didn't really plan for the day. We're like, okay, well, why do you plan for the day? They're like, well, I kind of started my day late. I need to get up earlier. We're like, okay, well, why'd you get up late, right? And we trace it all the way back to bedtime. So the first domino in their sequence is actually not getting up early, and it's not spending more time at work. Their first domino is going to bed on time. So by having a limited number of points, you're forced to think about what actions are most causative. You don't want to be chasing effects. What you want to do is choose points that help you get at the cause.
So in summary, you're going to come up with the 3 to 5 areas of life that you're playing your game in. Once you've got that clear, check. Then the next thing you're going to think about is, in each category, what outcome am I creating? And you're going to be as specific and measurable as possible. If you're choosing a category that's more qualitative versus quantitative, so let's say you're working on being more romantic, right? Tends to be more qualitative.
There seems to be a theme this year.
There's a theme. More qualitative, even though as wives we might say that's very quantitative. I can totally measure that. But let's just say you're working on being a better dad, right? It's a qualitative thing. Being more spiritual, being more religious. Okay, great. So then give yourself a current score. I would give myself currently a 4. Great. At the end of 90 days, I want to be a 10. That can be a specific measurable outcome for a qualitative category. Everything else, you should be able to say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to bring in this many assets. I'm going to increase my math score by this much over the course of 90 days.
Let me use the romance one as an example. So let's say, for example, right now, no comments, please. Right now, I would score myself at about a generous 4 in romance, right? Let's say my goal by the end of 90 days is to be an 8. So I've got this measurement, but how do I know that I arrived there? So it might sound more like, over the next 90 days, I'll take my romantic relationship from 4 to an 8, because every single week I will plan a truly great date night, right? So all of a sudden, either the ball went through the hoop or it didn't. It's not something where we're asking you, well, how do you feel you did? It's got to be something measurable.
So you're going to choose 3 to 5 areas of life, a specific measurable outcome. And then you're going to give yourself daily and weekly points that will close the gap between where you are and where you will be at the end of 90 days. In some cases, let's say somebody plays in 5 areas of life, they tend to ask like, well, how many daily points can I give myself, right? Some people are very like mathematical and they want to do 2 daily points for each category. 5 times 2 is 10. They've got their daily points. There are some categories, with all due respect, that for some of us are going to be more of a challenge, and they might have 4 daily points, and you'll realize that your other categories, you can use the other 6 easily. Just want you to know there's not a perfect science to this. Your understanding of what you need is the perfect science. So next week, you're going to come with the areas, the outcomes, and your daily and weekly points, and that will combine to create your scorecard.
So next, if we take a look at it, you will complete the game scorecard, which will include listing the emotional elements. This is something that will be sent to your daily partner, meaning your family in this case, so that way they know what your daily scorecard, daily points are.
You're not going to send it to your daily partner or your family until after preseason call 3. So don't worry about that yet. But it is definitely a future action that you'll take.
So it's not just going to live with you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we actually want to highlight a technology that we call mind dumping. Now, just briefly, what I would say is that this is a time when people have a lot on their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of transition, a lot of change. There's a lot that we could say about this technology, but we want to give you just a short briefing. Know that we will revisit this, but it is a way to actually clear the mind, to organize one's actions so that way you can give your full attention to those actions.
It's best if you try to take even a moment right now to have a practical experience of it. So we don't have to do it in Excel right this moment.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in Excel right now.
If you have something to write with, if you took 30 seconds on even just a lined piece of paper and you began to think about the things that you need to handle, maybe even for your game, right? So maybe you write, come up with my daily points. In my case, finish my field of dreams, right? And then it could get to things like, remember to plan a fun evening for the family next week. Whatever are the things on your mind that would typically live on a sticky over here or on some paper that you're not really sure where it is on your desk, and then the notes on your phone. There's all these different places where you're telling yourself to remember things. We're going to teach you how to do this in Excel, but for today, just begin to list those items down on a single sheet of paper. So if you would just take 10 to 15 seconds and write down all the things that you're telling yourself you should remember or that you'd like to get done. Could be things you even want to do in the future, but if you just take a moment to write that down. Good. So for those of you that consider yourselves to be business people, you're going to, next to any of the items that are business related, for those of you that are in school, and if they're school related, or for those of you that maybe run a household, which is a very important business, this is what you're going to do. You're going to label all the items that are business with a B. If it's school, label it with an S. So you've got what you need to do that you just mind dumped, and then next to it, you're going to put a label. Business, just put a B next to it. If it's school, put an S next to it. If it's the household, put HH next to it. So you're going to label these items, sort of categorizing them, right? Anything that doesn't fall into that larger category of business, school, or household, you're going to put a P by, as in personal. So essentially what you should begin to have is a list of items that you've now decided are either business, school, or household as one category, or personal. And so what you should now see is this list categorized. And now what I'd like you to do is take a look at each of these items again. And on the other side of that item, so let's say you put the business, the B to the right of it, to the left, what I'd like you to do now is use a ranking system of 1 through 4. 1 representing the least important, 4 representing the most important. And you're going to rate each item based on its importance to you. This is not about the time sensitivity of it. This is about how important is this, right? So a 4 is going to represent the most important thing that you have to get done. Maybe it's a deadline. That could be time sensitive, but it's also something that represents something very important to you. Typically, when we're talking about this in the context of business, it represents either something very profitable or has a lot of liability if it doesn't get done. So those are 4s. 1s are typically those things that are the nice to get done and can sometimes get lost and must get done, but it's a 1. And then you can decide on your 2s and 3s. So now what you should have is a list of items categorized and then prioritized as 1 through 4. And what you're going to begin to do is ideally make a daily habit, and you could even do this as a family, 20 minutes at the end of the day, where everybody is mind dumping what came to their mind. As you begin to do this more regularly, you'll see that throughout the day, your mind is going to begin to give you more things to remember, more creative ideas, more business ideas, more ideas about whatever you're passionate about, because you're going to literally, no different than a Mac computer, you're going to free up space. It's like buying more storage. But in this case, you're buying more creativity, more capacity, because you're taking those things that are fairly obvious that we're not organizing to the fullest extent, and you're leaving it there, as opposed to using mind dumping, you're beginning to organize that mind so that it can be more pristine and free up more space.
As simple as it seems, if you can imagine using an Excel spreadsheet to do this, a person, sometimes people say to us, we're like, what's bothering you? They're like, oh, I've got so much on my mind. I've got like a million things on my mind. We're like, a million? They're like, oh, you don't understand. I got a million. We're like, okay, well, let's do a spreadsheet. They come back, they're like, well, it wasn't a million, it was like 79. But for them, immediately what they realize is the things that they are concerned with are finite. When it's all in your head, it feels infinite. And in fact, it tends to bring a person down. The moment we create this and all this is exterior to the mind, all of a sudden you have freed up the ability to actually address these things because they're not all tangled together. So though it is a seemingly simple process, we've had people say that they sleep better.
We've had people say they quit smoking, they lost weight, they slept better. I know it can sound like really.
Yeah.
What we're going to also teach you time blocking next week, and you're going to begin to see the marriage between mind dumping and time blocking and how it could have that impact for a human being. But for now, what we'd like you to do is do one big mind dump. Maybe you spend 20 minutes after the call and you just allow your mind to feed you whatever you've been worried about, whatever you want to get done and you're inspired about, whatever needs to be organized. Just get it all out. It doesn't mean that it has to get done in your 90 days. It means you're committed to organizing this. And what you're going to do is then make a habit every day of mind dumping every single day. This week, as I said, you could do it together as a family, and maybe you need 20 minutes, maybe you don't. We like to recommend that you do it towards the end of what you would consider your work or your school day. And it can become kind of like a ritual for you as a family. Let's just say, school and work end at, 3:00. And you're going to make it a habit of mind dumping at 3 for 20 minutes and then putting the house back to order. But that way you guys can go into the evening with a clear mind. And once we begin to teach you time blocking, you begin to see how it will handle the next day.
The key thing that you'll see is that there's a high level of order that this brings to one's life, which allows you to put your energy in an aligned way to what needs to be done right now. So we're close to wrapping up. We want to thank you for your time with us this evening. Again, you will be receiving this now by email, the preseason assignments for this week, and this is just recommended. Monday, you can complete your game playing field, meaning that you've chosen the 3 to 5 areas of life. On Tuesday, you can complete your desired outcomes, which is, like we said, like a finish line. What is the specific measurable goal? Wednesday, you can complete your game scorecard, which is where you will have your game listed, plus your daily and weekly points. And then ultimately on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you can mind dump We recommend that you not try to do mind dumping in one sitting. As Brooke said, typically if you sit with an Excel spreadsheet, when you step away, get a good night's sleep, you come back, all of a sudden the mind will begin to release additional data. It's not unlike people who typically would keep like a pad by the bed in the old days because they knew they'd have some of their biggest creative thoughts, obviously, at night.
So you will be receiving an email with your homework assignments for this week. And I want to say a very special shout out to Mr. Lyle, who's seen right here, who has been killing it if you're out there, and your beautiful wife and your daughter. I believe your daughter's name is Winter. He has literally listed every assignment. His vision board is here, his theme name, his movie, Pursuit of Happiness. Like, good amazing.
Choice. Good choice.
So anyway, I just want to say, so well done.
Yeah.
You've been crushing it in the social media aspect.
And the same thing for Angela. We really appreciate over LinkedIn being able to see the homework done. And actually, you will see in the slides that the very next slide, we're reminding you to, for Facebook, post daily on Facebook and Instagram. Create your post on Facebook, and at the end of it, write at the Kelley Group, intl.com, hashtag 90-day game for Instagram. Post daily on Instagram and Facebook. Create your post on Instagram. At the end of it, write at Brooke J. Kelley, at Sarano Kelley TKG, at the Kelley Group INTL, hashtag 90-day game.
I also want to say that I know that Philip Board and your family are out there playing, so we want to say hello to you, and to the Zismer family. We want to say hello to you. I saw a couple of people here online this evening. I know Ivy, you're out there, so great to have you as well. Trying to see who else might be here. But anyway, we just want to give a couple of shout outs and let you guys know how excited we are to have you all joining us, and how much we're thrilled that your family's here. We're hoping that our daughter Grace will make an appearance soon, but she did get involved in the family game name and those other things. And again, just keep in mind that you can, so this week we looked at the areas you want to play in as an individual. You guys can play in certain areas as a family. You can come up with family daily points and family weekly points, as well as your own individual. So everything that you're doing as an individual, you can apply to your family or to your team at large. And we want to encourage you to do that.
So who would ever think that we'd be spending Easter together? I know this was not on the plan. I'll share with you something real quick. I'll make it real fast. My wife will recall that there was a time when I have sciatica, and my back was so bad for 3 weeks. It was over Christmas. I not only could I not walk, I couldn't crawl. I will spare you the details. It wasn't pretty. But it's funny because it's during times like that that I would decide to do something like write a book. Can't get up. Might as well write a book, right? Sit there on your laptop, right, with your legs up. Or pray, right?
You're already on your knees.
You're already on your knees. So what I would say is that this time may never come again. And I know it occurs like inconvenience. And to the casual observer, it would look that way. But for a true player, every circumstance has its own unique opportunity. Some could see this as a chance to rebalance. After 3 decades of being on the road, I'm actually at home. So I don't want to take up time with that, but I just want to share with you that I would ask you to take a look at what is the opportunity inside of what is definitely a tragedy, and how can you make it go right for you and for your family. Mm-hmm. So from our family to yours, we want to thank you for sharing this with us. And clearly, as you've all heard, I need to work on my romance game. That message was loud and clear.
Sorry for the little ones. I know that we'll make it more family friendly.
We'll make it more family friendly.
But happy Easter. I hope you had a blessed Passover. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with us. We love doing this with you. Please send us your stories. We'll get the email out with your homework. But if you have questions, do let us know. And also, we really would be inspired by your stories. We'll share our family game, because we did that. this evening. So we'll share that with you by email so that you can also see how we have our individual games, including Grace's individual game. And then we also have a family game. And I'll be sharing my Field of Dreams next week.
No.
Yeah. If it coalesces.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great night, everyone. Be blessed.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye-bye, all.